Welcome, everybody, in the Off the Ball Network fandom and beyond to this week's edition of your favorite Wednesday night affair, the Bunts and Bruises podcast. As always, it is two of your favorite hosts on the Off the Ball Network platform, your favorite hockey guy and your favorite baseball guy, myself, the Iceman, leading you guys through this one today, and joined, as always, by my man, a true champion. You know, we are waiting to crown the champions of Major League Baseball as the World Series has begun. The Fall Classic is here. But alongside me is a true champion of the sports take world. My guy, he is the Don of baseball, James Barcia. James, it's finally here, brother.
I'm so excited, Jerg. Even though it's, the game we were scared to get, it's still the game we got. It's a World Series no matter what. Kind of started off awesome. We'll get into a little more detail about that later when we dive deep into it, excuse me. But regardless, either way, Jerg, it's exciting stuff. Game 1 was yesterday. Game 2's today. Anything can happen, and the Braves just keep surprising us, man. They took the first one, but like I said, we'll dive deeper into it, Jerg. I know we got some teams you want to talk about here in the young, bright season of the NHL. So without further ado, Iceman, let's get right into it. Come on.
Absolutely. We're going straight into it tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start out with the NHL talk. Just a couple early notes here of the season, that just started about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago at this point. Not a lot to take in, especially as myself. I think I've made it clear in episodes in the past that I'm not really someone who analyzes the first couple games of the season and determines all right, this team is done 7 games in. Not exactly how it works in sports in general, except maybe football. But when it comes to the other 3, it's just not how it works. But we're going to see what's been interesting so far in the NHL to begin the year. And let's not waste any more time. Bars, we are going to start off hot here. We're gonna try to start this off in a good bit of a mood before we hit a damp middle of the show. But let's start out in the good of teams that have been impressive so far to begin the season. Now, this could be a number of different factors of why we're talking about these teams. It could be the fact that they are performing above expectations as you thought they were a playoff team and they're looking really hot to start. Or it could just be a team that's come out of nowhere and it's like, they won games. Well, I'll be. So I'm going to start off with one of the teams that I'm personally shocked at. A lot of people would probably argue this because this has been a talented team in years past. This team has started off the season so far 5-0-0, undefeated to this point. Perfect record. But I'm impressed with how they've gotten this perfect record, I should say. So I'm going to go with the Carolina Hurricanes as my surprise team so far, out the gate so far in this season. Now, the Hurricanes, like I said, they've been a good team these last couple of years. They made the playoffs each of the last 3 seasons. They had that shock conference finals run a couple of years back. And since then, they've been a consistently good team. Everyone knows it to be so. But what has really impressed me about the fact, it's not the idea that they've started out 5-0, it's how they've done it. Their defense and goaltending has actually been very impressive to begin this portion of the season. For everyone that remembers our NHL offseason review that was done way back at end of season 1, I want to say, maybe early season 2. The idea that the Carolina Hurricanes were going to go into the season and the defense was going to be the thing that jumps off the screen to you, not exactly the idea that most people, myself included, were going for. This team lost Alex Nedeljkovic and let him go in the offseason by trading him to Detroit. The defense that going into last season looked impressive lost Dougie Hamilton, who's more of an offensive piece, but still a nice guy to have on the blue line nonetheless. They added a couple pieces here and there, and it didn't really look like it was going to be much. And their goaltending situation was, turned around. They allowed Mrazek to leave. They traded Alex Nedeljkovic. And the main guy that they got back is Frederick Anderson, former Anaheim Ducks and Toronto Maple Leafs goalie. And my whole thing was you kind of got, a bit worse. If not, you stayed average at the position. And while Frederick Anderson has performed well in the past, based off of his last year and a half in Toronto, it didn't feel like he was going to be that much of a massive upgrade to Nedeljkovic and Mrazek, especially the two of them, Nedeljkovic breaking out in the NHL last year and Mrazek having a phenomenal season. Had he been healthy the whole year, honestly, Carolina probably would have had for sure would have done better in the regular season. Not even an idea because of how good he was playing consistently throughout the year. But Frederick Anderson has decided to prove all of us wrong, and a friendly reminder that he was injured at the end of last season, and it shows because he looks healthy, he's looking good, and he's doing great for the Carolina Hurricanes right now. Dude is, like I said, he's been perfect so far this season. Goals against average is below 2 goals. I want to say it's something along the lines of like a 1.7 goals against. The team in front of him is firing. Toivo Teravainen is looking good. Sebastian Aho is looking fine. Jesperi Kotkaniemi looks like he's fitting into this offense early on after they took him from Montreal. By the way, revenge game for him. He actually scored against the Montreal Canadiens when Carolina played them early this season, which is just beautiful story writing. You couldn't write a script of that game to end up better. But yeah, James, I got to say, this early on in the season, I'm impressed with the Carolina Hurricanes, because if you were going to tell me the defense was going to be the most intriguing part of this team first 5 games in the season, I would have been highly skeptical.
You know, Jared, fun fact, the first 5 games of the season, this has been the best start in franchise history, 5-0. It's never happened for them, so, it's kind of crazy. But what you do got to do is you got to give general manager, correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, because you know me, I always mix up names. I think his name's Don Waddle. Either way.
Close.
Donnie W. You got to give my man Donnie Dubs some credit, because he went free agent shopping this summer. Like you said, you were a little worried that the team got worse, but he took a look at it and took what last season was, and it was a pandemic shortened season. So he didn't take he took some of the performances, obviously, but he didn't let that sway his opinion on who he should bring onto this team. And hopefully, we see it is a short season, but we hopefully see that Carolina is finally taking that next step that you always mentioned, because we've said it before, Jared, Carolina is essentially the baby Tampa. So hopefully they got that defense to finally, step up to par, and maybe they'll make a long run. Maybe we'll even see them in the cup this year, because you had them as a cup winner during our playoff shows, and then they just defensively collapsed. But hey, maybe it's a new day.
But I mean, baby Tampa is one way to describe it. There's quite a few teams who could say that when it comes to around the NHL. Quite a few in these. No, I have always been intrigued with the Hurricanes, because I feel they have the potential to go on another conference finals type run again. But it's just something that always gets in this team's way come the playoffs, and it typically is the defense and the goaltending that failed them. Look at what happened in the Tampa Bay series. I mean, granted, the first couple of games of that series was actually the offense that failed them, and then the defense completely collapsed. And I mean, Tampa did what Tampa has done the last 2 postseasons. They absolutely shut it down. But yeah, no, the Carolina Hurricanes, Don Waddell, the thing is, I've never doubted him as a general manager. It's just my concern was the fact that when you make changes like that, such sweeping changes, you got rid of both starting goalies last year and brought in a new duo, because it's not just Frederick Anderson, it's a new backup there as well. There's a concern, because the last 2 years, you could say whether it's injury or not, the last 2 seasons, Frederick Anderson hasn't looked like the same goalie of old, right? He did not look like the same kind of guy who was talented in Anaheim. He didn't look like the guy that we saw early in his Toronto Maple Leafs tenure. He was a Vezina Trophy candidate his first 2-3 years with Toronto, funny enough. So it was a concern on that end. I mean, obviously it's just the first 5-6 games of the season, but if it's looking like it's paying off right now, like you called him, we may need to call him Donnie W, because that's a W of a free agency acquisition if Frederick Anderson is going to play this well consistently. Now, he's going to have his rough stretches. This is for all goalies. All goalies are going to struggle throughout the regular season. He's going to have his bad game relatively soon here. But right now, I got to give the Hurricanes credit. They have thoroughly impressed me with how they're looking this season.
Jerick, we were talking off screen, so let's just tell the fans about it. There was one team that surprised you even more than the Hurricanes. So let people know who they are, because they're surprising me as well. After you mentioned that, I had to take a look. I didn't believe you. I had to double check it. I said the stats have to be wrong, but they're right. Let people know.
You had to double check it. I had to quadruple check it to make sure that my eyes have been not lying to me this entire season so far. Like I said in my little monologue before this, I'm shocked that this team even has a W. The Buffalo Sabres are 4-1-1 to start this season. Right now, for those that are watching on video, I'm constantly looking a little bit to my left right now, because I'm highly concerned that at some point when I look outside the window of where I'm recording, hellfire is going to start raining down from the sky, and everything is just going to end, because the Buffalo Sabres being 4-1-1 to start a season just does not compute. It does not make sense. It sounds like one of EA Sports' NHL simulations, and considering it's EA Sports, means it's typically not that accurate. But the shocker of them all, the Buffalo Sabres are doing good, James. A team that I said that I kind of hoped, just for the memes, of course, I'm all for the memes here, that they would have a healthy shot at breaking the NHL record for the worst team of all time, is actually playing pretty well so far. Now, again, this is the first 6 games of the regular season. Everything's going to even out. I can say this with full confidence. I don't expect this team to make the playoffs this year, but I need to give them credit. They're not a dumpster fire on the ice to begin this season. And all of that, honestly, it goes to the goaltending situation. Craig Anderson, That dude is I was talking about Mike Smith last week as like an ageless wonder. No, Craig Anderson is the ageless wonder. Dude's in his 40s out here still playing at a NHL starting goalie caliber level. I think he's 3-1-0 or 3-0-1. It's one or the other. They have an overtime loss in there. I don't remember if it was him or Dustin Tokarski who was in the net for that game, but he's starting out well, below 2 goals against average. Save percentage doing great. Not a lot of like high scoring on this team. Like Victor Olofsson's kind of looking good so far, but aside from that, no one is performing at a great pace, like a record breaking pace on this team, like with certain other clubs, like a Connor McDavid. Like they don't have a McDavid, they don't have that guy. They technically do, but they don't want him to go see his doctors and get a procedure. But nonetheless, this is all about positives. But yeah, James, the Buffalo Sabres have thoroughly impressed me so far, and I'm still concerned that there is something wrong with like the balance of the earth right now, because how the heck is this team 4-1-1?
The craziest part is how the heck did they beat the Lightning? I don't understand that one. That's just
they blew them out.
Literally 5-1. It's insane. You got what's it called? You got the Chiefs just doing terrible in football, and you got the Sabres beating the Tampa Bay Lightning destroying them 5-1. It's something's going on. You're right. I should start checking out. It's been raining a lot in our area, Jerry. That might be why. Who knows? But we hear starting off on the bright side of things. Shout out to Buffalo. Hopefully they could keep it up. Maybe it's the leadership. Maybe it's the defense. Like you said, maybe they can end up trading Jack Eichel and ends up turning into something bigger for them, and this continues on going. Probably not, but regardless, we're going to move on to a little gloomier side of things. So, of course, you got some teams surprising you that have been doing great. What are some teams that have been disappointing you, and how can they correct the ship?
So I'm going to run with 2 teams here really fast, because there's a certain team that I want us to spend a little bit more time on than usual. So the first 2 teams I'm going to run with are 2 teams that I mentioned in our Western Conference preview just last week, and that's the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights. Both teams, funny enough, are 2-4-0 to start the season. A couple losses on both team schedules so far that aren't exactly looking good. And I think it's honestly a tale of 2 different stories when it comes to these 2 Western Conference powers as to why they're struggling. For your Vegas Golden Knights, James, and I can't wait to hear your excuses for them as this segment goes. My thing with the Vegas Golden Knights is that their defense has actually played pretty fine, so to speak. Robin Lehner has performed admirable. Instead of Marc-Andre Fleury, he has to follow up a guy who won the Vezina Trophy last season, aka the best goalie in the league, so there's that. But Robin Lehner has actually performed pretty dang well so far. Goals against is below 3, like a 2.78, 2.87, somewhere around there. Save percentage is very respectable. I think the defense has played fine for the most part. They've been healthy for the start of the season. It's just the offense that has been a question mark with this team ever since that game against the Seattle Kraken. And they just had a game, I think, funny enough, against the Colorado Avalanche where they found their goal scoring again. The offense hasn't been really there for them in a couple of these games. They lost 3-1 to the St. Louis Blues, who are one of the remaining undefeated teams in the NHL this season. Also 5-0 along with the Carolina Hurricanes. They lost 2-0 to the New York Islanders. They're getting shut out there. I mean, the Islanders will do that to a good amount of teams, so I'm not necessarily surprised. But I think for Vegas early on this season, you don't want to get blanked out when your offense has been struggling. And I just think it's a tale of this team it's talented, but now we're starting to, I think, see some of the concerns. They'll rebound. I'm fully confident that they'll get their goal scoring again. They have some talented players, but these guys need to step up. I need to see more from Jonathan Marchessault again. I need to see William Karlsson finally perform up to the level he did in Vegas' first season. He was here, like he was at the top, the apex of his career at the beginning of the franchise, and it's just been a decline ever since. He hasn't played like a 30 to 40 goal scorer ever since then. He just hasn't felt like that kind of player, and he needs to be that again. Like I said, I think the defense with this team is fine. I just think the offense, like they need to get it going. And that's why during the offseason, I was very critical of the fact that this team didn't try to go for like a big trade, because I think they needed a big trade. And I don't mean them trading their guy, Marc-Andre Fleury. I meant them bringing someone in to help out the offense. A number 1 center, perhaps, that a certain bad team doesn't want to trade, that you can make the cap to get. But nonetheless, who am I? Who am I? I only said Max Scherzer would get traded, but yeah, nonetheless. And the Colorado Avalanche, of course, are my other team. And Colorado, it's like I said, it's a tale of 2 different stories of why these teams are doing bad. And with Colorado, it's actually the defense and the goaltending that's been a bit of an issue. More so their goaltending. I think the defense is relatively fine. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually make a move, not relatively soon, but if you tell me that this season Colorado's probably going to try to trade for a blue liner, a defenseman, wouldn't surprise me at all, because I think this team could just use extra depth at the blue line. They got a little bit worse during the offseason, not such a steep drop-off. There's still talent there with Cale Makar, and I think Bowen Byram I believe he's on the roster. I could be wrong. I haven't checked their roster in a couple of days. I think he's been on the roster to start the season. They're young rookie they drafted a couple years ago. Very highly touted prospect coming in. I think he's going to have a pretty solid rookie season for the most part. But the team just needs to, they need a little bit of something there. And it can't hurt to add some more defense to help out the goaltending because Darcy Kemper has not looked great so far this season. Goals against way above 3 up to this point. They've had some bad defensive games overall. They allowed 5 goals to the St. Louis Blues. You know, the Blues just beating everyone so far this season. They allowed 6 goals to the Washington Capitals, and they allowed 4 goals to the Florida Panthers. Not great. Not great. In a 3-game stretch, you allow 15 goals. Very hard to win unless your offense just takes it to another level. And we've seen glimpses of the Avalanche offense, and they're going to do good again. Nathan MacKinnon is there. He's a Hart Memorial Trophy candidate. Mikko Rantanen's there. He's put up 80, 90 points in seasons before. Like I said, Cale Makar on the blue line. This team has depth. I'm not concerned. You know, like I said, we're only 5-6 games in for a lot of these teams. The Colorado Avalanche, 20 to 30 games of the regular season, the ship will be properly put back into its direction. They'll get everything. The sails will be back. The winds are going to be blowing, and this team is going to be going into the horizon, looking to be a cup contender again. You just got to give them a little bit of time. But I feel both these teams, they'll get their stride here soon enough. Do you want to make any comments about your Vegas Golden Knight, James? I know your face is, I think you felt some type of way in that analysis.
There's a little bit, Jurg. I think these injuries are big. I'm not gonna lie. Mark Stone and Max. I ain't gonna say his name, Maxi P, because I'm gonna mess it up.
Ready.
Exactly. Those are big injuries, man, and it hurts our offense. Yes, but those big injuries, as you alluded, I think are gonna leave because as I was reading some articles and I've read some rumors, there's a certain guy in Buffalo who, he's unhappy, and we could make some cap to take it because Buffalo wants none of his cap. So I don't know. I'm just saying a lot of big things could happen for my Golden Knights. We could get a former MVP. And my big question to you, though, Jurg, is the Knights and the Avalanche, 2 teams you just mentioned, both recently played, and the Knights won. Who do you Knights won, right? Knights won. Who would you are the Knights the better off team at the moment, or are you a little more worried about the Avalanche? And does this game even really compare to who's more in trouble?
I don't think this game really compares because I'm so numb to it when it comes to early season performances from teams. I really am. And I feel like we're shouting this out a lot more in recent shows, but the Off the Ball Network Twitter group chat, the amazing group of people that you can catch on the network constantly at, in all the different shows, like the guys are talking about the NBA season early, and one of the guys texted in the chat, I'm convinced, he literally said verbatim, I'm convinced the Lakers are done this season just based off of last night. We're 4 games into the NBA. You can't say that with a straight face. So that's my mindset with the NHL. I don't think that game means anything, but I will say this. If you're going to ask me between Vegas and Colorado, who do I think will be better off in the next 5 games? My first guess would be Vegas because I think it's easier to correct your offense than it is to get the goaltending situated again. I really do, because the talent is there for Vegas to get the offense going again without making a deal, without doing something. The guys just need to play. I think Colorado, they need to make a concerted effort to help Darcy Kemper out and that goaltending a little bit more. The defense needs to play a lot tighter. They need to deny the puck getting so close so often, deny the easy passes into the slot, force teams to, have to work for their shots. That's what you have to do. And I know that's not necessarily Colorado's game. They're not going to do that for a full 82-game regular season. But I think now they need to do that. And I think it's going to be harder for them to adjust defensively than I think it would be for Vegas to kind of fix things offensively. Because again, the talent is there for Vegas. And I think the talent will shine early in the season. And then as the season goes on, the tactics, the game plan, I think that's when that'll show more. So early here, I think Vegas, it wouldn't surprise me if they go on a little 3-4 game winning streak here, try to get back into, the good graces of all their fans.
Of course, sure. Come on. We're like a beautiful V8 engine. You don't go from gear 1 all the way to gear 8. You got to gently go there. And then eventually, you're going 120 down the highway. We taking it all the way. But
he throws out the car references because he knows I won't get them and just move on.
I barely know the car references myself, Jerk. Don't you worry. I just know about the engine, and you start at 1 and you go slowly to 8. That's it. But regardless, let's go. Let's drive this vehicle over to the big game that happened last night. What do you say, bud? Let's talk about the one, the only World Series.
Oh.
As we said last week, it's not the most entertaining World Series. Well, it's not from on paper the most entertaining World Series, but some big things happened last night that make you think it could become one of the most entertaining World Series. What to you, my friend, was your favorite part out last night? We'll go a little deep dive in a sec, but I just want to hear it before we even take that deep. What was your favorite part about the game yesterday?
Charlie Morton's a goddamn warrior.
Yeah. Oh my God, it was insane.
Like, let's just say that off the bat. No, we're not going to waste any time. We'll get into the analysis in a few here. We need to focus on this right now. Charlie Morton is a warrior. Dude broke his leg. It reminds me of that old Madden video where it's like the guy catches the pass from Greg Jennings and he's just going like, broke my leg, carry the team
on my back, the city on my back.
Yes, that's what Charlie Morton. Yes, absolutely. That's what Charlie Morton did, man. He literally did that for that team. We were talking about before the show. How many pitches did he throw on a broken leg?
16. He threw 16 before leaving, and he apologized that he didn't throw more. I just find that hilarious. The guy felt terrible that he took 102 mile per hour ground ball off his lower right leg from Yuli Gurriel. I probably mispronounced his name again too. Jesus, Jerk. We need to have a name pronouncing class or something because you need to show me a
I got you.
But still, he threw 16 pitches. He threw only 44 pitches total in 2 1/3 inning. He threw 16. That's just under half. That's a tick under half on a broken leg. For those of you who don't know, when you're pitching, yes, most of the momentum comes from your arm, but all your power comes from the lower body. That's where you get your stability. That's where you kick off. That's why they got the block on the mound, is because that's where all the power is coming from. It's like a whip. You start from the bottom, you go to the top, boom, ball goes flying. And this man fractured his tibia, fibula, it doesn't matter. He fractured a huge bone in his leg. Huge. And he pitched 16 more pitches. I don't see how he did it, Jurg. I was running the Spartan race. My foot went in the mud. I was ready to call it quits right there. Nothing happened besides I lost my shoe in the mud. That was it. It's the most insane thing to me. But let's go a little deeper dive into this World Series. So, game starts right off the rip with a world history moment. And Jorge Solar, one of these outfielders who was traded once Ronald Acuna went down. One of the key pieces, as we mentioned in many episodes. First ball, first pitch, might not have been the first pitch, but still, first at bat, my man hits the first ever World Series leadoff home run, which is just, it's kind of magical, I guess. I'm kind of upset because it's the Braves, and you know me, Jurg, as a Mets fan, but it's just something about this Braves run. It almost makes you feel like they own it. They're going to win it. There's nothing we could do about it.
Shout out to Kenton. Shout out to Kenton
because he did call it. You're right. He did. He said it. There was magic in the air. And you got a guy who broke his legs your starter, your number one starter, broke his leg 2 innings into the game, and you still end up with the win. Yes, it was like 5-0 at that point or something by the time he broke his leg, but still, it's just outrageous. What do you think, Jurg, is just what's keeping this going for the Braves? Or are they just as good as they've always been, and we've just been disrespecting them this whole season?
I think the thing is, when you think about this Braves team, do remember at one point they were down. Like going into the All-Star break, they were down. They were just looking up in the NL East the entire time. Late July, early August, they were about 6-7 games back of the NL East.
Third at one point.
Yeah,
third after
and to be third in your division after the deadline, in a lot of cases, that's like you need everything to break your way. And it did. And it wasn't just the Phillies and the Mets losing. I mean, we could expect the Phillies and the Mets to lose, let's be honest.
Hey.
But the Braves had to win. Yeah, get over it. But the Braves had to win these games, and they've kept on winning. And sometimes it was big. You know, when they faced the Marlins, it felt like they were going to drop 10 runs on them every single game. Or in certain games, they had to come from behind, and sometimes they just had to eke out those tough victories, right? And we saw that continue in the playoffs. They won every single game against the Brewers was a low-scoring affair. Like the most scoring they did was the final game of the series, and it was a 5-4 game. And that's when the Braves offense came alive a little bit more. Because I think it was games 2 and 3. They won back-to-back games like 3-0. Like that's not that big of a margin in baseball. It's just not. Like it takes 1 or 2 swings to come back from a 3-run deficit. But the Braves just kept on going. Their offense is doing just enough, but has gotten hot here and there at the right time. To see the Dodgers series is a perfect example of that. But it's their pitching, man. Like we talked about Charlie Morton and what he's been the ace this entire season. Max Fried's been good, but the bullpen has stepped up in the playoffs. Like when they've turned it over to their bullpen, and we've talked about this, bars, with all these other teams, how the Boston Red Sox, we were concerned about their bullpen. The Chicago White Sox in the Astros series, we didn't think their bullpen was going to be good enough against the Astros hitting. Turns out their starters weren't even good enough for the Astros hitting. The Braves bullpen has been as close to shut down as you can get when it comes to it. Because in that Brewers series, they kept sending it to their relievers, and their relievers kept closing the game. Like that, you need to be able to do that come playoff baseball. You need to rely on your bullpen. And they've relied on their bullpen to come up big for them. They did that in the Brewers series. They did that in the Dodgers series. And in game one, they were forced to do it because Charlie Morton was looking pretty good early on, right? He was definitely going to go 5 or 6 had the injury never happened. And they had to go early into a little bit of a bullpen game, and they got the victory against this high-powered Astros team that if you had told a lot of people the Astros were going to only score 2 runs, if you had said this situation, Charlie Morton's going to leave in the second inning because he's left in the second or the third?
Third inning, 2
third. So Charlie Morton's going to only go 2 1/3. He's going to have to leave due to injury. And the Astros are going to get the whole rest of the game to get their hitting back on track. If you said they were only going to score 2 runs that entire game, most people would have been surprised. But this Braves team has just been so good, so talented. That's why they were able to win game 1. And that's why they have a real chance at winning the World Series here, because they have showed up time and again, and they did it in, I would argue, the most important game, because I think at least in my opinion, bars, against the Astros, you wanted to get that first win. Like, you had to take that first game against them. Because in game 2 now, like, they're going to step up. They're not going to have bad games back-to-back. And can the Braves offense live up to the Astros offense? Like, that's something kind of dicey, because the Astros, they could put up 9 runs on you. They can. I don't know if the Braves can put up 9 runs on them in the same game. So, to get this game 1 win, big-time victory for Atlanta.
This is actually, I believe it's the 5th loss in a row in a World Series at home that Houston has had since last year, because last year no home team won their game, which was the craziest thing, which is how the Nationals ended up winning in Houston. But I think this is the crazy part about this game is, like you said, this was a must win, but once Charlie Morton went down, it became a without a doubt must win, because okay, you give up game 1, you still have game 2. You got to take 1 from Houston out of those first 2. But once Charlie Morton went down, there is no question about it. We have to win this game, because this changes everything now. This is going to affect. We saw what happened with LA with Max Scherzer having to close and then him not be able to pitch in game 4. It affects you down the line. The biggest thing about this game, though, was the fact that the Braves were able to come up 5 runs up by the 3rd inning. And that just blew up the Astros, and it made them become a bullpen game as well. So it's not even like it really affected Atlanta, where they had to dig deep into their bullpen. And like you said, Jurg, their bullpen played phenomenal. AJ Minter killed it. Will Smith crushed it. Luke Jackson, he did good. Tyler Madzik, he sufficed. But regardless, they all did collectively good. And as I always say, Jurg, I hate bullpen games, because it's not you're just trusting one guy to be on top of his game. You're trusting multiple people to be on top of their game, and one person can ruin it all. But the fact that my favorite pitcher on Houston, who I guess he's their ace right now, if they're throwing him out for game 1, Framber Valdez got blown up. 8 hits, 5 runs, 1 walk, and only 2 strikeouts in 2 innings. It created a bullpen game for the Astros, and now that just evened everything up when it comes down to the rotations, when it comes for game 2, game 3, game 4, because you think about it, earliest, let's say Charlie Morton never got hurt, earliest he was coming back was game 4, maybe game 3 late if they needed him out the bullpen as a warm-up for game 4, and then it's a maybe he pitches game 7, if it even gets to that point. But the fact now that you were able to blow up Houston, take 1 from home at them, and deplete their bullpen as well, is just that adds up everything. But we also saw some good bullpen performances from Houston. I can't go without shouting out Jake Odorizzi, because he threw 2 1/3 innings with only 1 hit and 5 strikeouts. That's just, if only Framber looked half as good as he looked, maybe they would have had a better shot of catching up. But the Braves, man, they're just crushing it. They're just crushing it. There is no other way to say it. And the only person I'm happy for on this entire team is Freddie Freeman, because I've played fantasy for so long and he's been a Brave for God knows how long. And you would love to see him win one. As much as I hate the Braves, you would love to see Freddie Freeman win one.
And I believe his contract comes up this season, after this season, James.
Wow.
I think it does. And it's not a guarantee that they're going to be able to keep him, right? Like, as much as he's been there his entire career and doing it for the team, he's won an MVP, he's helped this team, now get to a World Series. It's not a guarantee that they're going to keep him, because if someone massively overpays him, let me take that back, because I don't like saying overpays.
God,
but
please.
Someone's going to pay him. And if someone takes him away from Atlanta, that'll mark an end to his tenure. And if this is his last season, like, let's go out big. Let's go out with a championship here, right? And I think it would be poetic if in Freddie Freeman's last season, a couple of these guys, I think it could be their last season in Atlanta, because a couple of these guys were just trade deadline acquisitions. Like, it's not, you don't always keep guys that you just got at the deadline, right? Like, we're hearing the Mets and the Yankees are considering if they should keep like Baez and Rizzo. Braves, it's not a guarantee they're going to keep a lot of these guys. So it's like, when it comes to that, this is a big time for the Braves. This is a window of opportunity here, because you don't want to waste it. When you get to the World Series, when you get to the Stanley Cup final, the Super Bowl, the NBA finals, you never know if you're ever going to make it back with that team. Mm-hmm. You never know. And in this situation where, yes, you made it this far with Acuna, and I always hate this, argument. It's like, if Acuna was in, would it have somehow been different? Like, let's just stop that. Like, this team would have just even been better if Acuna had been in the lineup this entire postseason. But are you going to stop? Are you going to make it back when Acuna is healthy and in his peak years? Are you going to be able to make it after the season, even if you keep a Freddie Freeman? Like, will your pitching ever get back to the point where Soroka will get healthy to be with Max Fried? Like, there's just so many questions and so many what ifs of if you don't take advantage of the opportunity. I think for the Braves, like, it's all about taking advantage of this opportunity. Like, you're here and you got to just go for it. And game 2, they have a big chance here, because like you said, they were forced to have a bullpen game. They're going to be going for a straight up starter game there, because Max Fried is going to be going in. And in 2 of his 3 starts so far in the postseason, he's gone at least 6. And they're going to need a game like that from him. I wouldn't be surprised, James, if they hope that he can at least go 7 in game 2, because here tonight, by the way, we're recording this of game 2, so we're about to be competing with the World Series here in a couple minutes.
Game 2 starts in literally like 5 minutes.
yes. So we're gonna see if he could have that big time game for them tonight. If he could try to make it so that their bullpen gets a rest here, because imagine they get a 2-0 lead going back to Atlanta, and their bullpen is rested, because there's going to be a day break in between game 2 and 3. Like, that's big, James. That is big for Atlanta.
It's, I mean, at that point, I don't see how they lose it, Jerk. I really don't. Like, we've been saying this. I don't want to keep overusing the word, but it's a magical run. There's no other way to explain it. There's nothing I can see. There's no one that could beat them at the moment but themselves. Their number 1 pitcher struck out Jose Altuve with a broken leg, and he still wanted to pitch more. Like, it's just, the story's writing itself at this point, and you're 100% right. Freddie Freeman is a free agent after this year. God, if you love me, please, Mets, someone give this guy a call. Regardless, it'd be so great. But it's just, how great would that be? He runs off into the sunset. World Series ring at hand. Terrible he's on the Braves. Charlie Morton gets hurt game 1. Still able to strike out former MVP. Did he win the World Series MVP too, Jose Altuve, when they won it last? I think he did. I don't remember. Either way, if he didn't, Carrera won it. But regardless,
no, I think it was George Springer, wasn't it? He hit like 5 home runs in that.
You're right. You're right. You are 100% right. Oh God, that was a great World Series too, man. Either way, just I don't see how they're gonna lose, Jurg. And we could, after tonight, I could be completely 180 about this next week, where I'm literally like, I don't know how I said what I said. But at the moment, everything's magical, and it's up to the Braves themselves to beat them, because, like you said, the offense has to stay clicking with the Astros, because right now, with the way the bullpen's looking, I think I'd take the Braves bullpen over the Astros bullpen, with the way that, minus Jake Odorizzi, but I'd taken the Braves bullpen over the Astros bullpen. And Will Smith, he's been on fire as of late. You got to hope he still keeps it up, because if he starts losing it, then that's when it gets a little questionable, because you said it, Jerk, best. Will Smith follows this bend don't break approach, and it's been working beautifully. You just gotta hope the dam doesn't burst at one point. But other than that, man, you got Travis d'Arnaud, who was gone most of the season. You lost the first, if not second best player in all of baseball. You just got to feel for Ronald Acuna on my fantasy team. But regardless, Jerry, let's take a little deeper dive into this
This guy
second
in his
game.
fantasy team, that's like the third drop this episode.
Yeah, but dude, it's just I don't want to talk about it, Jerry. I'm hurting.
I don't want you to talk about it either.
But all right, we're done talking about my grief. Let's go a little deeper into Game 2 of this World Series, starting at 8:09. What a weird start time. That's going to be the first thing we're talking about. Why 8:09? I don't know, Jerk.
They thought we'd be done recording by then. That's why.
They gave us a 9-minute buffer, so let's try and get that in, Jerk. But regardless, all right. So first fun fact I wanted to bring up to you, Jerk, which I thought was interesting. I heard it on the radio. Was today you mentioned this Max Fried, and on Houston's side starting is I can't pronounce it, so I'm gonna let you pronounce it.
Jose Urquidy.
Urquidy, I was gonna say Urquidy, but see, either way.
I mean, it could be that. I've heard. I'm pretty sure I've heard Urquidy, but it could be Urquidy.
Actually, you know what? I mixed up the what's it called? Either way, mixed up the set. Regardless.
Oh,
Max Fried, and I think it's Jake Odorizzi. Could be wrong. Either way, it's the first time ever. No, it's Urquidy. I don't remember. Either way,
it's Urquidy.
First time 2 Jewish players are starting against each other in the World Series. It's another world-breaking thing. Jerg is crazy. We are saying that this World Series on paper could be the most boring. Also, Game 1 open to be historically one of the lowest ratings ever for a World Series, but that's not here nor there.
That's just baseball.
That's just baseball. Simple as that. But you got that historical fact. We also have, you hope to see Dusty Baker, Hall of Fame manager, even if he doesn't win this, maybe win his first World Series ever. It's not looking too hot right now, but we will find out. What are some things aside from, let's hit the damn ball, you think that Houston has to start doing, click better, and actually hopefully take this one at home?
I think so. The idea, it centers around hitting the ball, but I don't think it's the way they've done it so far, where the Astros have just been pure power this postseason. Like we saw it in that White Sox series. They obliterated the White Sox starting pitching that had 2 AL Cy Young candidates on that, starting rotation. They eventually, it took a couple games in the Boston series, but then when they caught fire, they took out that Boston Red Sox pitching rotation as well. I think it's a little bit of the same, but I don't think they're going to be able to do it the way they've had, at least early in the series. I don't think it's just going to be pure home runs, Correa and Yordan Alvarez match. I think they need to try, and this would be a shock, especially, James, I know you'd love it if they tried doing this, but I think they need to try to go with a little bit of, the old school methods here of just get contact, hit singles, doubles, try to steal a base or two here and there. Just get to the Braves pitching because they had to go to the bullpen in Game 1 early. Try to force them to do that here in Game 2. Try to see if you can get Max Fried off the mound early. Because, like I said, his first 2 starts he did well. Last start he had 4 2/3 innings against the Dodgers in 11-2 loss. 8 hits, 5 runs, 5 earned runs, 2 homers, 2 walks in that game. It was not a good game for Max Fried. So he's coming off a bad start. Now, can he bounce back? He probably can because Max Fried's a pretty good pitcher. But at the same time, if you can get that pitch count high, if you can force the Braves to start to second guess themselves a little bit, because when it comes to this point in the series, in the season, and we saw this last year in the World Series, James, like Tampa Bay thought about it a little bit too much when it came to Snell in what ended up being the final game of the World Series. Force them to make the decision on Fried. Even if you're not, getting runs against him, get that pitch count high. See if you can get them to go to the bullpen in the 5th inning. Even if you can do that, it gives you a better chance because as good as this Braves bullpen has been, a lot of their best guys came out in that Game 1. You talked about it. Will Smith himself, that bend but don't break, mentality with his pitching. He came in, he pitched an inning. Could he probably pitch another one tonight? Most likely. But Matzik had to come out and pitch 1 1/3 inning. Minter had to pitch 2 2/3 innings. Like, try to see if you can force this team to go to the bullpen. And because of Game 1 yesterday, they may not go to their main guys. They could try to go to a different reliever at first and try to take advantage from there. I think that's what you need to do here if you're the Astros, ultimately, when it comes to that. And just, your pitching needs to show up tonight. Or Quiddy, he needs to have a big game. You can't let up a home run in the beginning of the game, first at bat. You can't let couple at bats later, a guy, I think it was a double that was hit to get the second run of the game. It was so Solar grounded. My bad. It was a Riley doubled to deep center. So I was correct. It was RBI double. But yeah, like you can't be allowing stuff like that to happen at the end of the day. You need to play a lot better. You need to, have Urquidy do his thing. I don't know if you're gonna. I'm just saying, don't know if we're gonna hear any trash can banging tonight or not. But let's hope not. Let's hope for a clean World Series here, boys. But at the end of the day, like, Astros is just like a top bottom 100 point restoration here. Like, you got to do everything. You got to get your hits in. You got to force Atlanta to make tough decisions, and your defense has to do its job. Like, it's just as simple as that. You just need to play better this game.
Oh, for sure. And you mentioned Max Fried, and you're right. He's actually one of the few, if not like the only pitcher left in this World Series that could truly dominate a game and take over. So what the Braves need to win this game too is they need him, as you said, just take over, pitch 7+ innings, and that'll really bring a relief. And even if they don't lose, even if they don't win and they end up losing the game, and if it's a close game, you still would want Max Fried to be out there as many innings as he can be, because you don't want to end up like how Houston ended up, where you're blowing through your bullpen, even if it's your worst arms, because you can't afford arms at the moment now that after you lost.
Or the Dodgers. Think about it like that. That's what killed the Dodgers.
Yes, exactly, because they tried being smart and going all Tampa Bay and starting Corey Knebel, and then they were like, oh, he sucked, and then it just play baseball. Play original, good old school baseball. I know I'm sounding like old man yells at cloud, but still, we need starting pitching to go past 5 innings, because I'm tired of trusting 4 to 5 guys to pitch their best game when all it takes is one of them. I always say it, Drew. All it takes is one of these guys to blow up, and that's it. It could ruin, especially in the World Series. It doesn't just affect you that game; it affects you the whole series. But regardless, I think today is going to be a lot better game than we saw yesterday. I mean, you don't expect to see a former World Series champion, the more recent World Series champion, down 5 runs in the first 3 innings. So hopefully we get a little bit something closer than that. But you really just got to keep an eye on how Houston bounces back here, because if Houston, like I said, loses game 2, I don't know how much to repeat myself. It just doesn't look good, man. It just doesn't look good. But other than that, Jerk, that about wraps it up for me here on this World Series. You cleared everything. Also, quick correction. I apologize to everyone. I read the tweet wrong. I have the tweet right here in front of my face now. It's Max Fried when he faces Alex Bregman. It will be the first time 2 Jewish people have played against each other. First time in world history. And it's apparently on the anniversary of the biggest anti-Semitic attack in U.S. history. I don't know which attack that is. I will find out information and tweet it out for you guys and put it in the description, because I'm just that nice of a guy. Regardless of that, Jerk, you have any final thoughts here on this World Series?
Just like you said, let's hope for a good game too. I think my thing with the Astros is this. I think if they lose a close game, I think they still have a chance. Like, if they lose another 6-2, 7-3 game, I think there's questions of okay, where the heck is the offense, and can we get this going in Atlanta? Which, by the way, Atlanta will be going crazy if they get to back there with a 2-0 lead in the World Series. I think the Astros, it all depends on if they don't win, how are they losing? If they lose by a blowout, then I think the series is wrapped. But if they lose this 5-4, 6-5, all right, the offense is slowly getting going. It's okay, we got this. We could get something going here in Atlanta. And like you said, for the Atlanta, I have another word to describe their run aside from just calling it magical. Call it curse breaking, James. These boys are going curse breaking here, because that dang city, for so long, it all began with that. Well, it started way earlier, but it all began with that dang 28-3, man. It all began with that dang 28-3, and it was 28-3. Georgia lost to Alabama. They blew a 3-1 lead in the NLCS last season to the Dodgers. Atlanta just continues to be highly disappointing. I can't say anything about the hockey team because they haven't had one in a dang decade. But the Winnipeg Jets have been losing, so kind of circle gets the square there. I don't know how transitive property. I'm just throwing out random terms at this point. But Atlanta has suffered for so long. And we were hoping, you ended last episode saying, I hope they choke for my birthday. I appreciated the wishes. I didn't get that gift, so I will be expecting another one, in return. But at the same time, for Atlanta, this is big here. They can break so many years of curses for all their sports. And for the Braves too, because think about it, when they were America's team, they made the postseason 15 years in a row. They only got one World Series out of it. And they had how many trips? I know they had at least 5 in a row to the NLCS. They probably at least in a 15-year stretch, they were in the NLCS about half the time their season ended. And they only won the World Series once. Like, this is big for this team to bounce back, break the recent history of Atlanta sports ineptitude, get the W, and hoist up, one of the best trophies in sports. I mean, the commissioner calls it just a piece of metal, but I'm going to give it a little bit more respect than that. It's one of the better trophies in sports. Not the best, but it's still up there. But yeah, that's what's on the line here. It's the curse breakers against the former cheaters, as everyone likes to call them. And let's see who gets this. Let's see who gets this. By the way, if this series goes to Game 7, James, you know when that Game 7 is scheduled to go? Next Wednesday. Week? Yes.
Of course. We love challenging the World Series because, as we said, the game just started about a minute ago. Eddie Rosario just foul tipped. He's 0-2 right now. But regardless, I want to just throw in one more last final thought. You mentioned about Houston being cheaters. Of course, everyone knows Houston's cheaters. But imagine if they somehow, let's say they lose today, and they somehow come back down 2-0 and win it in Game 7 or 6 or whatever it may be, Jerk. Does that like imagine how it justifies basically the way they lost, or like all the trash talking everyone gave them? Like, if you're the bad guys and then you still want, it's Thanos snapping the finger, man. Like, it's what can you do? Like, yeah, I cheated, so what? I just won without cheating. What are you gonna do?
It would have been if Thanos had won in Endgame. That's what it would have been.
That's literally it. Like, this is the second part right now. It's everyone, Ronald Acuna got hurt, and then the GM started opening the circle. Everyone started coming out to attack Thanos, and if they went, man, that'd be nuts. Either way. Maybe it's just me being a Mets fan and not wanting to see the Braves win, but we gotta go catch this game for reviewing purposes, folks. So that way when it gets to Game 7 next week, or when it gets to Game 6, we'll have everything ready for you guys. Other than that, the deal. Follow Jerk K40 on Twitter. Follow me, Bars Talks on Twitter, Bunts and Bruises Podcast. That has been going up significantly. Thank you to all our listeners. We appreciate that. Please, let's keep it going. Tell your dog, tell your cat, tell your mom, tell your fish, whatever you got to tell. As long as they got Twitter, make sure they follow. Even make another Twitter.
Big Fish Show. We're a Big Fish Show.
Big Fish Show. We're huge in the clownfish population. They find us hilarious. But regardless, once again, guys, thank you so much. We love you. Rate 5 stars, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Peace.